Not long ago, I made a video talking about The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican, a 6-episode animated series from 1950 that has garnered a reputation for being one of, if not the worst cartoon ever made. Just watching a few seconds of any episode of the show, and it was very apparent why it's considered the worst cartoon ever made. Everything about this show is bad. This is like the bare minimum of a cartoon right here. I can't even give it the pass of being like, oh, it's from 1950, that means it's okay. No, even for 1950 standards, this is awful. Bro, you had like Mickey Mouse, Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry shorts from like the 30s and 40s that are much higher quality than this show. It is something that has to be seen in order to be believed. Throughout that review, I frequently brought up the creator of Paddy the Pelican, the one, the only Sam Singer, and how supposedly he had a bunch of these other similarly poor quality cartoons, one of which I would bring up from time to time throughout that review. Bucky and Pepito. As soon as I finished the Paddy the Pelican review, I thought, you know what? It's inevitable. I might as well get this other show out of the way. Bucky and Pepito is another show from Sam Singer that is widely regarded as one of the worst cartoons ever made. This show lasted a little bit longer than Paddy the Pelican did, running from 1958 to 1960. Now, something that I brought up with The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican was that at one point, it was lost media. Eventually, though, all 6 episodes of the show would be found, for better or worse. Well, as it turns out, this f***ing thing is lost media as well. The only difference is that it is still lost to this very day. At the time of making this video, there are 9 episodes of the show that are currently available in full. There are other episodes of the show that have like small fragments of them available, but generally there are only 9 episodes of the show that are available in full as of making this video. Now keep in mind, The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican only had 6 episodes. For this show, there are only 9 episodes that are currently available in full. How many episodes did this show have if The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican only had 6 episodes? I'll tell you. Bucky and Papito had 52 episodes. That's right, 52 episodes, and only 9 episodes are available in full. That is absolutely insane to me. As soon as I finished that Paddy the Pelican review, I was like, oh god, I can't wait to see what kind of garbage this show has in store for me. Maybe this show could be better, maybe it could be worse, I don't know. I downloaded and archived all 9 fully available episodes of the show, and I started watching through them, or at the very least, I tried to watch them as much as I could. I don't know how much sense this is going to make, and I'm pretty sure this is going to affect the video completely, but I'm pretty sure this show is genuinely unreviewable. I'm pretty sure it is very hard, if not impossible for me, to make a proper, genuine review of this show. And you're gonna see exactly what I mean as we go along. Much like with Paddy the Pelican, I'm going to try and go through every available episode of this show. Believe me, I consider this show in its current state unreviewable for a reason. So with all of that said, let us dive in. Let's talk about Bucky and Pepito. Let us see if this is worse than The Adventures of Paddy the Pelican or not. So the first episode of the show, or at least the first fully available episode of the show, begins with a copyright disclaimer. A copyright disclaimer that has aged like milk, given the fact that, much like Paddy the Pelican, this show is in the public domain. And then after that, you get a good indicator that indeed you're about to watch something great. A peak film release. Look, it says it right there. This is a peak film. How could this possibly be bad? What do you mean this is one of the worst cartoons ever made? It says it right here. It's a peak film. It's amazing. It's cinema. It's kino. Animation is cinema. Bucky and Pepito is cinema. Now, this show is a bit weird when it comes to, like, its formatting. I don't know how to describe it. Some episodes are silent, meaning they don't have any dialogue at all. They do that thing that like really old movies do where it's like they have a character talk and then you don't hear them talk at all, and then they put up like a card that's like, oh, this character said this. I don't know how to describe it, but like you watch this first episode, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. It's this thing that like old movies did from like the 1920s. And then other episodes actually have dialogue, like the characters talk. They're not silent, they have sound. I don't know why this is the case at all. I don't know why some episodes have sound while other episodes are silent. Keep in mind, this show came out in the late 1950s. By that point, silent films were long obsolete and sound films had become the norm. I mean, when you remember who made this show, it doesn't really feel all that surprising. Sam Singer does feel like the kind of guy that would still make silent films in the late 50s. Also, some episodes are in black and white while other episodes are in color. Why? I don't know. That's just how it is. Again, by this point, I'm pretty sure black and white short films and whatnot, black and white films in general, like by this point, color films had become the norm, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong on that, I don't know, but I think more likely, yeah, color films had become the norm by then. But that's beside the point. I'm delaying the inevitable. Let's actually talk about these episodes. Episode 1, The Roman Coyote. Okay, so right off the bat, you will notice that there is a significant improvement from Paddy the Pelican in terms of visuals. This show actually doesn't look bad from an art perspective. The art is actually pretty good. The art of Paddy the Pelican, like the character designs themselves, are not terrible. Maybe they're like the only not terrible thing about Paddy the Pelican, but it's very obvious. It looks very unfinished. It looks like a storyboard, like a first draft. That's what it looks like. Most of the time, the characters don't stand on any background. They're standing in these blank white voids, and that's it. In this show, as you can clearly see, there are actual backgrounds. The characters are standing in front of actual backgrounds, and it actually looks pretty good. When I reviewed Paddy the Pelican, I had this belief that Sam Singer himself was the only person involved with the creation of the show. Well, it seems for Bucky and Papito, Sam Singer actually managed to get a crew, a team behind this. There are other names attached to this thing besides Sam Singer. So now Sam Singer is not the only person to blame for this show's existence. Anyways, this first episode follows a baby calf, I think is what it's called, like a baby cow. Just say baby cow, I don't care. And the titular coyote of the episode who desperately wants to eat him. Boy, this is a very original storyline. I've never seen anything like this before. However, all of the coyote's attempts to steal the cow are thwarted by Bucky and Pepito, who try to save the cow. It's a very standard plot. There's nothing really interesting about the plot. It's not funny bad like Paddy the Pelican. Paddy the Pelican I thought was like a very tiny bit funny bad, but the problem was the funny bad nature of the show went away very quickly. And then with Bucky and Papito, it was never there from the start, the funny bad feel. For the most part, you watch this episode and it's like a really generic old cartoon, and that's it. But despite all of that, there are a few interesting things about the episode. Namely, when it comes to the audio that plays in the episode. Now, as I mentioned before, this episode is silent. There is no dialogue in the episode at all. Well, no recorded dialogue. You don't hear any of the characters talk. The episode does the thing where a character says something, and then it cuts to a dialogue card showing what they say, and then it cuts back to the short. The strangest thing is that there are several moments in this episode where there's a character that's talking and then there's no dialogue card that shows up, and so you have no idea what the character said, which, you know, I guess that just serves as a reminder of who made this episode, who made this show. Bucky and Pepito is significantly higher quality than Paddy the Pelican, and yet it still has that trademark Sam Singer incompetence, baby. I have no idea why this is the case at all. I don't know a single thing about animating, but I know that it's not an easy thing to do. So these people, the people that made this, Sam Singer, all of these people, any of these people, they manually drew these characters talking, and then they decided not to show any dialogue cards for the moments where these characters are talking. It's like they originally wanted to have dialogue in certain scenes, and then they were like, nah, let's just remove it. Let's not have the character talk during this scene. And then they couldn't be bothered to remove the animation of the characters talking. This occurs more frequently in the episode, and maybe it's a little bit nitpicky, but there are moments in the episode where a character is talking, and then it cuts to a dialogue card, and then it shows the character still talking, almost as if they spliced the dialogue card in between the animation of the character talking instead of after the complete animation of the character talking. And it just looks off when you notice it. It's like very sloppy editing, which, I mean, that's par for the course for Sam Singer, but, you know, still. But getting back on topic, seeing how there is no dialogue, no spoken dialogue in the episode, you don't hear any of the characters talk, that means there has to be some form of audio in the background, and indeed there is. There are 3 songs that play in the background of this episode, and I remember getting very curious to see what these 3 songs were. They're not like amazing banger songs or anything like that. They're like really old like jazz songs or something like that. I don't know, jazz adjacent, I don't know. Swing, whatever, ragtime, I don't know what the it's called, like really old music. That's what it's called.
We ain't got a barrel of money, maybe we're ragged and funny, but we'll travel along, singing a song, side by side. Don't know what's coming tomorrow, maybe it's trouble and sorrow, but we'll travel the road, sharing the load, side by side.
And then there's a 3rd song that plays in the episode that I tried Shazamming like 5 different times, and not once would a song come up, so wake up babe, new Lost Wave mystery just dropped. Not only is Bucky and Pepito lost media, but it also contains a song in one of its episodes that's also lost media, or I guess unidentified media to be more accurate. Isn't that wonderful?
In a shady nook, by a babbling brook, with the flowers I spend hours every day. That old shady nook, and that babbling brook, they're my merry book, since you're away.
My favorite thing about this is the fact that whoever made this song is most likely dead. Like, that's it. This is like a really old song. Whoever made this is most likely no longer with us. Because clearly, it wasn't creepy enough, the fact that the song's artist is completely unknown. First, Paddy the Pelican had a girl in one of its episodes that is voiced by an unidentified woman that is most likely dead, and now Bucky and Papito has a song in one of its episodes from an unidentified artist that is most likely dead as well. What is up with Sam Singer cartoons and being unintentionally f***ing terrifying, seriously? Besides that, there's basically nothing for me to say about the short. There's just nothing interesting at all. It's your typical, generic, really old cartoon. There's nothing funny bad about it. There's nothing offensively bad about it either. I guess it's the fact that it's a silent short that prevents me from being, like, too negative towards it. Because really, what is there for me to say about it when it's silent? If this was a sound film, if you had the characters talking, maybe that would make it a little more funny. If we got more of Sam Singer's beautiful voice acting, then maybe this could be funny, but No, this short is completely silent. Instead, you're stuck with 3 really old songs, one of which is unidentified. The episode ends with Bucky and Papito saving the cow from the coyote, and God, that's literally me right there. And that's it, the episode ends. That's 1 down, 8 more to go. So because this first episode was extremely unremarkable and uninteresting, I became nervous about what the remaining 8 episodes would be like. Would this show be funny bad? Or would it just be boring bad? The worst kind of bad. You could say a lot of different things about Paddy the Pelican, but it sure as hell wasn't boring. And so, I proceeded forward into the second episode. This one is thankfully in color, and it has sound. The characters talk and you can hear their voices. Thank God, maybe this'll be a little bit funnier. Episode 2, The Coyote Catcher. Now, because this is the first episode of the show to have sound, that means we get to hear the absolute banger theme song that this show has.
When anyone needs helping, they always lend a hand. Bucky and Papito are known throughout the land. The animals all love them, bad hombres shake with fear. When Bucky and Papito are trailing very, very near.
So the episode begins with the coyote from the previous episode, who wakes up hungry. As he picks up a spoon, though, he sees that, oh wow, thank you, cartoon, for telling us that the spoon is empty. We would have had no idea otherwise that the spoon was empty. Thank you for labeling the spoon as being empty, to show that the spoon is indeed empty. The coyote notices a tomato farm from Pepito, and so throughout the whole episode, he tries to steal tomatoes to eat. Yes, this is the exact same episode as the previous one, only instead of a baby cow, it's tomatoes. Instead of having both Bucky and Pepito, you only have Pepito in this episode. Now, before I started watching this show, I saw a lot of people say that this was a really racist cartoon, particularly with the way that it handles Pepito. Pepito is supposed to be, I guess you could say, like a Mexican stereotype, and I could be wrong on this, but I think he is voiced by Sam Singer. That should be a no-brainer, the idea of this character being voiced by Sam Singer, but again, considering the fact that unlike Paddy the Pelican, this show actually has a proper team behind it. It's not made by just one person and that's it. The likelihood of this character actually being voiced by Sam Singer himself is lower. The chances of this character being voiced by Sam Singer are still high though. I remember scrolling through eBay, bored out of my mind, and I decided to look up stuff relating to Paddy the Pelican and whatnot, just for the hell of it, and I came across this, and this is to my knowledge the only available image of Sam Singer. And what do you know? He's white. Just like that. So you have a white person potentially voicing what is very clearly a Mexican stereotype. Yikes.
You killed Coyote! You wait till I get my hands on you, killed Coyote! Get away! I teach you some manners, and don't never come back.
I'm surprised it's taken us this long to look at really old, poorly aged, racist cartoons on this series, you know? That's like a special kind of bad cartoon right there. Even with the color and the sound, the episode is still just kind of whatever. You watch this, and it's like, it's not good, but it actually feels like a real cartoon. Like, it feels like a proper cartoon. It just feels like a really shitty D-tier Looney Tunes short, but it does feel like an actual cartoon, instead of the unintentionally avant-garde disaster piece that Paddy the Pelican was. The strange keyboard smashing, organ smashing, whatever, that Paddy the Pelican had as background music, it's not present in Bucky and Papito. Bucky and Papito has actual, legitimate music. This is significantly higher quality than Paddy the Pelican, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because, I mean, it's higher quality than Paddy the Pelican, but it's also a bad thing because that means that this show is nowhere near as interesting to talk about as Paddy the Pelican. I watch this and it's like I forget that I'm watching something made by the same genius behind Paddy the Pelican, which is again both a good thing and a bad thing. The whole episode just consists of the coyote going against Pepito. The coyote wants to steal tomatoes from Pepito's garden and Pepito doesn't want that. And so it's just a back and forth between these two. More often than not, you have Pepito succeeding and the coyote failing. Wow, this is such an original storyline, guys. I've never seen this before. I can't get over how original this show has been so far from the 2 episodes we've watched of it.
I teach you some manners. Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Please, I'm too young.
Ah, yes. Thank you, cartoon. Thank you for putting a thought bubble with a gun in it in the top right corner of the screen to indicate that the coyote thinks that a gun is behind him and not the pole of a rake. Thank you for explaining the joke, thereby ruining it and making it not funny. The episode ends with Pepito getting this anti-coyote equipment. I don't know. The coyote gets curious and so he decides to check on Pepito's mailbox, and then he gets punched, and then there's like an FBI badge that appears, and I don't know what the this is referencing, if it's even referencing anything, but it's not funny. That's all that matters. And then later on, Pepito returns to the mailbox and he receives the second part of the anti-coyote trap or whatever, which is admittedly a mildly funny joke. The trap in question is an inflatable watermelon. The coyote bites into the watermelon and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger until it explodes. And the episode ends with him being trapped in the keep out sign in front of Pepito's tomato garden. Yeah, episode 2 is not much better than episode 1. Not in the sense that like, oh, it's offensively bad and it's the worst thing I've ever seen, but more in the sense of just like, this is boring. There's nothing to say about it at all. I shouldn't compare this that much to Paddy the Pelican, but I can't help it. You have these 2 shows that are from the same person, and they both have infamous reputations for being awful, and yet they're very different quality-wise. One show is significantly higher quality. That is its greatest advantage, but it's also its greatest weakness. Oh, but don't worry though, things get so much better with the remaining 7 episodes. Just you wait. Okay, so as it turns out, Christmas is coming much earlier for y'all this year. Because when I started working on this video, there were only 9 episodes of the show that were available in full. And now there are 10 episodes of the show that are available in full. The next episode that we're going to talk about was found very recently. And so I decided, you know what? I might as well talk about it. Where's the harm in doing that? I am seriously spoiling y'all big time with this video. Although I will say, after I finished watching this episode, I think the world was a slightly better place when it was still lost media. Episode 3, Out of This World. Now, much like episode 1, this is a black and white episode, however, it does have sound. For this episode, I am not going to play any footage or anything like that from this episode, for a good reason. I guess this could just be because of, like, the poor preservation of the episode, I don't know, but I genuinely got a f***ing headache watching this episode. It is an eyesore to look at. You're not going to see this from the screenshots, and I am not playing any footage from this episode, but there's like this flickering effect that's going on all throughout the episode, and it is really hard to look at. Not only that, but it's also extremely bright. I don't know what's up with this. Again, this could just be because of poor preservation, but this whole thing looks extremely bright, like a nuclear bomb just went off or something. I'm gonna keep this segment significantly more brief than the other segments because in addition to the fact that this episode is an eyesore to sit through, and the less I have to talk about this episode the better, but also there's the fact that once again this is just generic old shitty cartoon. For the third time in a row, the episode focuses on the coyote. And now at this point, I'm convinced that the coyote is the main character of this show, and not Bucky and Papito. You know, the name of the show. The title characters of the show, and they haven't been the main focus of these episodes. The main focus has been this goddamn coyote. Bucky and Pepito barely appear in this episode. They only appear at the very beginning and at the very end. The plot of this episode is extremely simple for me to describe. Imagine a classic Looney Tunes Bugs Bunny versus Elmer Fudd short, except instead of Bugs Bunny, it's Wile E. Coyote, and instead of Elmer Fudd, it's Yosemite Sam. And instead of being good or funny, it's complete garbage. I'm not even gonna beat around the bush with this one, this is just straight up a Looney Tunes ripoff. We had two shorts that kind of ripped off the whole Wile E. Coyote chases the Roadrunner thing, except instead of a Roadrunner, it was a baby cow, and then it was tomatoes. And now we have a classic Bugs Bunny versus Elmer Fudd short, but with off-brand Wile E. Coyote and off-brand Yosemite Sam here. And it's also in black and white, and it's also extremely bright, and there's also a lot of flickering, and you have a recipe for disaster. The whole short is just generic Looney Tunes knockoff, and that's it. There's nothing to say about it. It's boring. But I find this episode to be significantly worse just for the simple fact that it is a eyesore to look at. If it weren't for the flickering that goes on in this episode, and again, I understand that this is likely because of the poor preservation of the episode and not because of the episode itself, I understand that, but that's still enough for me to say that this is the worst episode of the show so far. Realistically speaking, I could just stop talking about the rest of the episodes, but no, I'm gonna tread forward, because I feel that it is the right thing to do, and that if I don't go over every available episode of Bucky and Papito, I will regret it. With each passing episode, I start to respect Paddy the Pelican more and more and more. Paddy the Pelican is better than Bucky and Papito because it's worse than Bucky and Papito, if that makes sense. Sam Singer created one of the funniest cartoons covered on the Search for the Worst Cartoon, and one of the most boring cartoons covered on the Search for the Worst Cartoon. Hey, you can't say my man doesn't have any range at all. Episode 4, Them's My Boys. Now, if the previous episode was an eyesore, this episode is an ear sore, because there is one major issue with this episode, and that is the audio. The audio is horrible in this episode. The audio quality is unbelievably abysmal. And in all fairness, I understand that this is most likely a result of poor preservation, and that the episode didn't have this awful audio quality. But still, it makes trying to understand what goes on in this episode even harder than it needs to be. I swear to y'all, I did not manipulate or edit the audio in any way, shape, or form. This is how the audio of this episode sounds in its current state.
Texas Longhorns got a mean eye fixed on something. Bucky and Papito are doing a little fishing.
Just toss them in the water.
I mean, Jesus Christ, how do you even get it to sound this bad? Seriously. I know this show is garbage, but that doesn't mean the preservation attempts have to be garbage as well. This is gonna be yet another brief segment, as there isn't a whole lot for me to say about the episode itself, on the basis that I cannot understand what's going on in this episode, on the basis of the audio quality being awful. Oh yeah, in addition to the audio being awful, there are a few flickering moments throughout the episode, just to make things even better. It's not as bad as in the previous episode, but it is still there from time to time. The only good thing I can say about this episode is that this is the first episode to not have the coyote in it whatsoever. However, this is also the fourth episode where Bucky and Pepito are mainly just side characters in their own show. In this episode, Bucky and Pepito are fishing, and you have this off-brand Bugs Bunny character over here who has like a southern like voice. I don't know how to describe it. And I guess off-brand Bugs Bunny's role in this episode is to protect Bucky and Pepito while they're fishing. There's a bull and he doesn't like the fact that Bucky and Pepito are fishing, and he's trying to stop them from fishing for some reason. Maybe if the audio quality was good, I would probably understand why he's against them fishing. But off-brand Bugs Bunny manages to stop the bull. And then later into the episode, there's a vulture that appears, and I guess he wants to steal Bucky and Pepito's fish, and once again, off-brand Bugs Bunny manages to stop the vulture. And so the episode ends with Bucky and Pepito gathering their fish and leaving. And I don't know, that's the most that I could comprehend from this episode. This is partially what I mean when I say the show is unreviewable. I think it's either this episode or the previous episode that might be the worst one. I cannot tell. One episode is an assault on the eyes, and the other episode is an assault on the ears, and I don't know which one is worse. I really don't know. I think the tomato episode is the best episode so far, honestly. I love the fact that I've just completely forgotten that one of the main reasons why this show is so heavily criticized is because of its very racist nature when it comes to how it portrays Pepito. I love the fact that there is so much wrong with this show that the fact that it's racist is somehow the least of its problems. I mean, to be fair, it was also like that with Paddy the Pelican. The racist elements were somehow the least of the show's problems, but I feel like it's to a greater extent with Bucky and Pepito. Anyways, let's move on to episode 5 and hope that it's not an eyesore nor an ear sore. I don't care if there's nothing to say about it. That's fine. I just want something that I could at least sit through and not get a fucking headache while doing so. Episode 5, The Lion Tamer. Well, I have good news for this episode. It is neither an eyesore nor an ear sore. The audio quality isn't perfect, but I could still be able to understand what's going on in this episode better. The episode begins with Bucky and Papito hanging out with off-brand Yosemite Sam over here, who dreams of catching and taming a lion. Bucky and Papito decide to prank off-brand Yosemite Sam by dressing up in a lion disguise and scaring him. Meanwhile, there's a real lion that's hitchhiking, regretting the fact that he ran away from his circus, which I want to imagine no animal in real life would ever feel that way. And he ends up coming across off-brand Yosemite Sam. And just like that, it feels like the lion is back where he belongs. Yeah, considering the whole thing of like how circus leaders, whatever, how they treat animals, how they treated animals back in the day. I want to imagine obviously now, hopefully things are significantly better, but you know, remember, this was back in the late 50s, so there's a chance that things were not better. So I look at this and I think, oh, that's very unfortunate. That's very questionable. The idea of a lion wanting to be in a place where animals often ended up being abused, especially during this time in the late 50s. I don't know why I'm so surprised that the really old cartoon that we've already established has racist stuff in it is problematic, but still. The lion ends up coming across Bucky and Pepito disguised in the fake lion costume, and so he spends the remainder of the episode chasing them, believing that this is another lion that off-brand Yosemite Sam has gotten to replace the real lion out of his job. And so the episode ends with Bucky and Papito ending up in the circus leader's cage, and the real lion enjoying his time with off-brand Yosemite Sam. When I first watched this episode, I thought, oh hey, this might actually be the best episode of the show so far, the least bad episode. And then the questionable aspect of a lion wanting to go back to the circus, even though, you know, there's all kinds of stories of like animals being mistreated at circuses, especially presumably in the late 50s when this came out. And then I realized, never mind. I love how I say this, even though I have the tomato episode as the best episode so far, and that's the episode that most clearly highlights the racist stereotype of Pepito as a character. Jesus Christ, I didn't even think about that. This thing is so f***ing bad that somehow the episode that most clearly shows the racist stereotype is somehow the best one so far. We're officially halfway through the episodes that are fully available of this show. Let's hope any one of the remaining 5 episodes could be better than the tomato episode, because if I keep this as the least bad episode, then that could raise some very unfortunate implications. Sam Singer, I'ma be real with y'all, I am not gonna get canceled because of your f***ing creation, okay? Episode 6, The Vexen Texan.
You remember me, I'm Texas Jack. You know my boys, Bucky and Papito. I calls them my boys because I just loves to tease them.
Ah yes, everyone's favorite character is finally back, and now with a significantly better audio quality. The cursed offspring of Bugs Bunny and Sandy Cheeks. Who could forget his iconic catchphrase, "How's it going, doctor?" I know that we're only looking at 10 episodes out of 52, but I find it so funny, the fact that he says, "Y'all remember me," considering the fact that the last episode we saw him in had extremely f***ing awful audio quality, to the point where we could not understand a single thing that he or any of the other characters in that episode were saying. Although I think it's for the better that we didn't understand a single thing he was saying in that episode, considering what we just heard now, where he calls Bucky and Papito his boys because he just loves to tease them. Yeah, that's very interesting, off-brand Bugs Bunny, you know, mind having a seat? Please take a seat. Very interesting. So anyways, the entire episode focuses on off-brand Bugs Bunny. Yes, I know he's a jackal. They frequently refer to him as a jackal throughout the episode. I'm still calling him off-brand Bugs Bunny, I don't care. He spends the entire episode going on about how much he loves to prank Bucky and Papito. And that's really about it. It's not funny, it's not interesting. Bucky and Pepito try to capture off-brand Bugs Bunny throughout the episode, however they're unable to. Eventually though, they do capture him, in which off-brand Bugs Bunny comes up with a scheme right then and there. Fake a foot injury and force Bucky and Pepito to free him. The bull from the other episode returns in this episode, I guess planning to attack Bucky and Pepito for reasons. Luckily, off-brand Bugs Bunny is here to stop the bull, and isn't this the exact same thing that we saw in the other episode? So now we're just reusing ideas from previous episodes. That's wonderful. And the only notable thing about this is we get to hear what the bull's voice sounds like in better quality, and it's exactly as good as you would expect it to sound.
Hey, what's the big idea, Jack? Ain't we Texan partners? That's right, partner. But you see, those are my boys, and I gotta take care of them.
I really do not like this character, okay? I miss the coyote. Can the coyote come back? You know, I criticized the coyote at first, but thinking about it more, I think he's the best character in the show. I can understand why 3 of the episodes were dedicated to him. The coyote is indeed the star of the show. I painted that as being a bad thing at first. I didn't see at the time that it was actually a good thing. And that's about it. That's another Bucky and Papito episode done with. Very boring, very uninteresting. Next, episode 7, The Elephant. Now you might be wondering, why is this the only episode that I haven't shown the title card for? And that's because this episode comes with a very, very nasty surprise. Guess what? This episode is in fucking German. Now the good news, if you can call it that, is that this is a silent episode. And I mean, this is a silent episode. As in, there's no audio at all. The only audio that comes from the video that I'm showing is from the projector, and that's it. There's no music or anything like that. This is silent right here. Now, because this is a silent film, I am able to understand the storyline for this episode a little bit, even though it's in German, even though the dialogue cards have, like, the shittiest looking font I've ever seen. Like, what the hell is this? Even if I spoke German, I would still have a hard time understanding what this is supposed to say, because this is an awful font. This looks like a doctor's signature. So anyways, the episode begins with Pepito fishing. He has a picnic basket next to him with a bunch of food inside, and all of the food keeps getting taken away by a mysterious elephant that Pepito immediately becomes friends with. Oh my god, forbidden knowledge. Yo, this reminds me of, like, this is such a random specific thing, but, like, in the midst of talking about this garbage, let's briefly talk about a good cartoon. So when I was a kid, I remember watching a bunch of videos on, like, Ed, Edd and Eddy, and this just completely brought back a very specific, very random memory from my childhood, where I would watch a lot of YouTube videos of people speculating what was under Double D's hat. I remember when I was a kid, I thought that was just what his hair looked like. I didn't look at it as a hat, and even then, I still don't really look at it as much of a hat. Given the fact that Ed and Eddy both have weird hairstyles as well, in that they barely have any hair, you know, I guess it would have made sense Double D would have weird hair as well. Even though this is not his hair, this is just his hat. I don't know. I wish I could continue talking about Ed and Eddy, but instead, I'm forced to continue talking about Bucky and Pepito. So while Pepito is playing with the elephant, there's a fire that goes on in the forest for some reason. The two of them are walking one way, and then immediately they go the other way to where there is fire. Where did the fire come from? I wish I could tell you, but unfortunately I don't speak German, and even if I did, I would still not be able to understand what this is supposed to say, because this is the worst font I've ever seen in my life. Pepito starts climbing up a tree that's very clearly burning for some reason, I don't know. They were walking away from the fire initially. I don't know why the hell they decided to run towards the fire. Bucky appears with presumably the elephant's owner, and the episode ends with Bucky and Pepito attending the circus and seeing the elephant performing tricks. The elephant jumps down into a tub that has a fire in it, and yet when he falls into it, water comes out. I don't know. I don't even feel like questioning it. And that's it. The episode ends. Of course, because things weren't disastrous enough already, we had an episode that was a complete eyesore, an episode that was a complete ear sore, and now an episode that wasn't even in English. That's wonderful. This show really is the gift that keeps on giving, huh? Now you might be wondering, oh, but what about the wildfire? Yeah, the episode just kind of abandons that whole plot line. You see Pepito and the elephant running away from the wildfire. They end up back in the lake that Pepito was fishing at the beginning of the episode. And then you see Bucky and the elephant's owner. And then it cuts to Bucky and Pepito at the circus. And that's it. The episode ends. Maybe they do explain what happened to the wildfires, but I don't know. I don't speak German. Given the fact that this is, again, Sam Singer that we're talking about, I wouldn't be surprised if they just randomly abandoned the whole wildfire subplot that the episode had. And that, my friends, is where our Bucky and Papito adventure is gonna come to an end. Now, I know what a lot of y'all are gonna say. What about the remaining 3 episodes of the show? Listen, I watched those final 3 episodes, and they are boring, with a capital B. There is nothing to say about them. Nothing at all. There are a few noteworthy things to say about them, but they're not enough to justify making entire segments talking about them. So we're ending it off here. We're gonna end it off here. Let us move on to my final thoughts. For being from the same creator that gave us Paddy the Pelican, and for having a similar reputation for being one of the worst cartoons ever made, this was really f***ing boring. I was not expecting that at all. When I first went into this show, I knew it was going to be different from Paddy the Pelican. I didn't know if it was going to be better or worse than Paddy the Pelican. There was a gut feeling in me that it was going to be worse than Paddy the Pelican, and indeed it was, but it ended up being worse than Paddy the Pelican in the worst possible way. Instead of being a strange, incompetent, poorly made disaster like Paddy the Pelican, this show is just boring and dull and uninteresting. It is a slog to sit through this show. It is a f***ing chore to sit through all of these episodes without falling asleep watching them. And keep in mind, there are only 10 episodes of the show that are fully available, and I only covered 7 of those 10 episodes. I have to remind you all, there are 52 episodes of the show in total, and only 10 of them are available, and only 7 of the 10 episodes I covered. Dude, imagine if all 52 episodes of this show were available. It would be a nightmare for me to go through all of them. 52 episodes of the most boring garbage I've ever seen in my life. The only really interesting, noteworthy thing that I can say about this show is the racist depiction of Pepito as a Mexican stereotype. But that is not enough to elevate this show beyond it being boring. When I went into this show, I saw there were a lot of people that said this show was racist, and I didn't know what to expect from that, but I was not expecting this show to be both racist and boring. Somehow it's able to do that at the same time. I went into this expecting some Censored 11 type shit going on with this show. Something that would offend me. Something that would shock me with how morally reprehensible it was. And instead, I end up getting something that is somehow racist and poorly aged, and also really f***ing boring at the same time. As I mentioned before, this show is significantly higher quality than Paddy the Pelican. That is its greatest strength, but it's also its greatest weakness. Because it's better quality than Paddy the Pelican, that means it is nowhere near as interesting. The strange, absurd charm that Paddy the Pelican had, the unintentionally outsider, avant-garde feel that Paddy the Pelican had, is gone in Bucky and Papito. Paddy the Pelican feels like strange, unintentionally avant-garde outsider art. Bucky and Papito just feels like a generic shitty old cartoon. And as a result of that, I think it is worse than Paddy the Pelican. Again, you could say a lot of different things about Paddy the Pelican, but it sure as hell wasn't boring. I feel like I wasted my time watching and reviewing this show, which is something that is not easy to accomplish when it comes to my standards. To create a cartoon and have it be so boring and so uninteresting that it feels like a waste of time watching it and a waste of time reviewing it. But alas, that's what Bucky and Papito is to me, and that's why I rank it as one of the worst cartoons I have ever seen, period. Not only is this show boring and uninteresting, not only is this show racist, but it's also hard to sit through in certain episodes, because nobody else gives a shit about this show, and why should they? It's garbage. A few of these episodes are in very poor condition. You have an episode that has genuinely unlistenable audio quality, and then you have several episodes that are hard to watch because there's flickering in the visuals. I'm not joking when I say this. Episode 3, Out of This World, gave me a headache twice. It gave me a headache when I watched the episode, and it gave me a headache when I edited the segment for the episode in this video. Besides the annoying flickering throughout the episode, there's also the fact that it is so unnecessarily bright, and it just makes it look even more ugly than it needs to be. I ended up having to significantly darken all of the screenshots for this episode just to make them more tolerable for all of you. Mr. I Like the Problem Solvers over here cannot look at this episode without getting a headache. That should tell you a lot right there. In its current state, this show is unreviewable. I mean, even if all 52 episodes were available, and even if they were all in good condition, good quality, whatever, the show would still be unreviewable. Because it's boring. It's uninteresting. I am very well aware that Sam Singer has a bunch of other cartoons besides Paddy the Pelican and Bucky and Papito, and I sure as hell am not gonna look at any of these other shows. Not for a very long time. GTA 6 will come out before I make a video on another Sam Singer cartoon, okay? I'm just gonna put that out there. I want to spend a very long time far away from this man and his creations, thank you very much. Sam Singer's son or Vivzy Pop daughter. Pick your poison. I would like to apologize for how boring this episode is, and I promise y'all, the next episode is going to be a lot more interesting. I genuinely considered scrapping this episode on several occasions because I didn't think it was turning out good. I didn't think it was turning out to be like a very funny, entertaining video, but I ended up pushing forward and making a complete review of this show. When you have a show that is frequently regarded as one of the worst cartoons ever made, it would only be natural that you would talk about it on a show dedicated to finding the worst cartoon ever made. However, you would never expect this show to be unbelievably boring. But that's exactly what Bucky and Papito is. All I'm gonna say is, I think we're gonna stay away from the prehistoric slop for a long time now. We've only done 2 videos on 2 really old cartoons, and already I am sick of the prehistoric slop. Already, I want to go back to my comfort zone in the 2000s and 2010s. I want to go back to looking at modern stuff, okay? I want modern garbage to criticize, modern garbage to clown on, please. I never thought I would ever say this, but when the is season 2 of this thing gonna come out? Seriously. Anyways, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video despite how boring it was, again, I apologize for that, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, then be sure to subscribe as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see y'all next time. Adios.